Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to our next video lesson. We're going to be talking about arrays, and so what I'd like for you to do is to create this very simple application where it allows the user to enter in 5 different values, that is 5 different quiz scores, and when the user clicks the Calculate Stats button, then it'll return the minimum, maximum, sum, and the average of those scores. Here's the kicker. What you're going to do is you're going to have to create an array, and that way from the array, once you sort it, then you'll pick the lowest value, which will give you the minimum. The highest value within the array is going to give you the maximum, obviously. You're going to add all the items within the array to give you the sum, and then from there we can calculate the average. And then of course you have some additional software requirements in terms of what the button, text boxes, and labels are supposed to look like. And that's about it. Alright, so let's switch over to Visual Studio, and I've already created my graphical user interface. I'm going to pin down the properties panel so that I can show you what these different names are. So for example, this text box here. Alright, so this is, whoops, sorry. Go back over here. There we go. Alright, so this is TXT Quiz 1, TXT Quiz 2, TXT Quiz 3, TXT Quiz 4, and then this last one will be TXT Quiz 5. This button is BTN Calculate Stats. We have 4 additional labels down here with the fixed 3D border style. This is LBL Minimum, LBL Maximum, LBL Sum, and LBL Average. And then of course you'll notice that there are no minimize or maximize buttons here. And that's about it. Okay, so let me go ahead and double click the Calculate Stats button so I can show you what the code actually looks like. So you'll notice over here, first of all, within this BTN Calculate Stats button, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to indicate what the size of the array is. Now, arrays in Visual Basic are a little bit different than arrays, say for example in Java or C++ or C# in that the column size in this case is simply basically indicating how many array elements are we going to have. That's typically what most programming languages do. They have a constant that represents what that should be. So really this should be const, right? Because that's what my intention is, to have this represent a constant. Here's the problem. In Visual Basic, this really represents the highest subscript. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 6 numbers. Did you count that? Count them with me. So 0 would be the first number, 1 would be the second number, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a total of 6 numbers that I just quoted to you. Well, that's kind of misleading, right? Because the column size kind of indicates, hey, this thing is supposed to be 5 in terms of the array size, but instead I just listed to you 6 numbers if you start from 0. So just take that into consideration. For Visual Basic, it's a little bit different in terms of if you establish a constant that's going to determine what the size of the array is, that number really is representing the highest subscript number and not necessarily the entire size of the array. That's why over here when I'm declaring my array, so in this case I'm going to call this array quizzes. How big is it going to be? Well, in this case, notice that I said column size -1 because the first subscript is going to be 0 and then the next one's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have a total of 5 quiz elements within my array, and that's why I have this column size -1. So what this is saying is that this array called quizzes is going to hold a bunch of doubles, and specifically it's going to hold a total of 5 doubles. I'm also going to create a variable called sum, average, and also counter, and then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to obtain the user entry. Well, to obtain the user entry, that's pretty easy. I'm just going to take the text property from each one of the different text boxes. I'm going to convert them to doubles, and then I'm going to place them into every element of the quiz array. So the first index for any array is 0. It's the 0 index. And then the next one is going to be the 1 index and the 2 index and so forth and so on. So you'll notice that I have a total of 5 of these, and that's where TXT Quiz 1, Quiz 2, Quiz 3, so forth and so on. Each one of these different text items are going to be placed into each of these different array elements. Okay, so this would be element 1, this would be element 2, element 3. Or another way of thinking about it is this is index 0, index 1, index 2. That's how you could think about it in terms of arrays. All right, to sort an array, it's very, very easy in Visual Basic. You just simply use the array class dot sort. Once you've done that, then you can go ahead and type in whatever the name of the array is that you want to sort, and it's automatically going to be sorted for you. So in this case, we know whatever the largest element is, that'll go to quizzes 0, and then whatever the smallest one is, rather, that'll go to quizzes 0, and whatever the largest one is, that'll go to quizzes 4. And I'll show you and demonstrate that when we run the program. All right, so sorting an array, just type in array.sort parentheses, and then whatever the name of the array is, it'll automatically sort it. Now, in terms of calculating the sum, arrays and counters, loops I should say, go hand in hand. So what's going to happen here is this. I'm going to go through this for loop over and over and over again, specifically from counter equal to 0 to column size minus 1. So if column size is 5, as we saw back up here, right, I assigned it equal to 5 initially. So 5 minus 1 is 4. So from 0 to 4. So count with me. Put your fingers up. For 1 for 0, and then the next one 1, 2, 3, 4. So you should have 5 fingers up. So this is going to loop 5 times, and that makes sense because this is an array of 5 in terms of its size. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the old value of sum, which I initially set equal to 0, as you can see up here. I'm going to take the old value of sum, and I'm going to add to that quizzes, and then of course counter at first is going to be 0. Then quizzes is going to be 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. And what's happening is the sum variable is going to be modified every time I go through this particular loop. So at first, it's going to be whatever is inside of this array element, and then it's going to be inside of whatever is inside of this array element, and so forth and so on. It just keeps on going from there. Okay? So that's how this works out. And basically what we're doing is we're determining the sum of all the numbers within the array. So once I have the sum, calculating the average is easy. I just take whatever the sum is and then divide it by however many numbers we actually have in our array, which in this case is going to be column size. All right. Once we've done that, then it's just an issue of outputting the different values. So to output LBL maximum, that's the value in quizzes 4, right? Because it's sorted. Up here, remember, we sorted it. So the minimum value is going to go into here. The maximum value is going to go into here. So that means that quizzes index 4 has the max. Quizzes index 0 has the minimum value. That's why that's going to go into the LBL minimum. The average, we've already calculated that, so that's going to go into the LBL average label. And then the sum, we've also calculated that by using a for loop to add all the elements within the array. So once I convert that to a string, we're going to put that into LBL sum. All right, so let's run the program. All right, now that the program is running, let me try some different values. So I'm going to type 70 tab, 60 tab, 100 tab, 90 tab, and 40, say for example. Then I'm going to click the Calculate Stats button. Notice that the minimum value is 40, that's correct. The maximum is 100. The sum, well, let's see. That would be 70 plus 60, so it's going to be 130, 230, 320, 360, so that's correct. And then the average would be basically all of these, the sum divided by 5. And so 72 is in fact the answer. Okay, so the program works. Now let's just step through the program to make sure that you have a good understanding of how this thing works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the program right here on our first assignment statement, and I'll run the program. So start debugging, and let me move this down a little bit. And let's go to the program. Here we go. All right, so let me enter some values again. So 40, 70, 60, 100, 90. Click Calculate Stats, and now we've stopped the program here. So at this point, you'll notice that TXT Quiz 1, that currently is assigned 40, right? 40 is inside of that particular text box. We want to put that into the index 0 of the array quizzes. So notice over here in the Autos panel, I have quizzes, and I'm going to click this plus symbol so that I can expand it. And you'll notice what's happening here. Let me scroll down just a little bit here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements.